Hello again. Yesterday, for the first time, the figures for those receiving universal credit in Britain were released after being broken down by nationality. The information was absolutely stunning, although I dare say that it will pass almost unremarked today after the novelty has worn off. The fact is that over 1.25 million foreigners are currently getting universal credit. I realise that we take all this kind of thing in our stride these days, but just try and picture the situation as recently as the 1980s, say, when Britain's economy was struggling and there was very high unemployment. Can you imagine for a moment that over 1 million foreigners would have been claiming the dole here as well as British people? It would have been simply too grotesque for words. And if such a state of affairs was found to exist, there would have been an absolute uproar. These days, after one or two headlines in the Daily Mail and the Express, nobody will even really be that much bothered. This is what we have come to. There is an aspect to the business which we might do well to consider, other than the obvious one of how completely balmy it is. It is this. Last year, we were solemnly assured by the Chancellor of the Exchequer that there was a black hole in the economy. Remember that? We were told £22 billion was short, and the most urgent steps had to be taken to find a way of plugging that enormous hole. It was in this context that the winter fuel payments for old people became means tested, because that would save the country a whopping £1.3 billion. Every little helps. I wonder if we all remember that. £1.3 billion was saved because the national finances were so dire. Let's ask ourselves how much we are paying each year to foreigners who are on the dole here, shall we? The standard universal credit payment for unemployed adults is very roughly £100 a week, or £5,000 a year. Let's take that as a working figure and multiply it by just over 1.25 million. That is to say, the number of foreigners in this country claiming universal credit. How much was paid to those people in the course of the last year? It comes out at £6.5 billion. 6.5 billion. See what we did last year. We took away the winter fuel allowance from almost all old age pensioners, thus saving £1.3 billion, while at the same time giving 5 times that amount of money to a bunch of foreigners living here. Try as I might, the justice of such a decision eludes me. On the one hand, we have a group of people, most of whom were born in this country and paid income tax and national insurance contributions for half a century. We take £1.3 billion of benefits from them and then give 5 times the amount to foreigners who were not born here and have not paid 50 years of income tax and national insurance contributions. If anybody can justify this, please feel free to do so in the comments. I spoke yesterday of that secret airlift which brought almost 20,000 Afghans here, about which we have only just been allowed to know. That project cost £7 billion. Add it to what we are paying foreigners in dole money, gives us over £13 billion in the course of a year. Is there really an economic crisis? And if so, how can we afford to spend so much on foreigners while scrimping on British people who have worked their whole lives in this country? Please, anybody that disagrees with me or thinks that I'm being awful, feel free to comment and explain, if you're able to do so, the justice of this arrangement.